Trump's crusade, an unprecedented challenge for American democracy. The institutions have stood firm against the blows of Donald Trump, who still refuses to concede his defeat in the presidential election. But the dramatically shaken American democracy could struggle to recover. Even before November 3rd, the Republican billionaire had assured that the ballot would be rigged, which he has been repeating on every occasion, despite the clear victory of Democrat Joe Biden in votes, 7 million in advance, and in large voters, 306 against 232. "We've never seen an incumbent president do this, even in a tight race," said David Farber, professor of history at the University of Kansas. "The legitimacy of our institutions has never been called into question to this extent, except during the Civil War." Referring to massive fraud without providing proof, Donald Trump and his allies have lodged some 50 complaints across the country and exerted pressure on the authorities responsible for the count. Judges, including those of the Supreme Court, and local elected officials, even Republicans, have not yielded, and the Maine voters will meet on Monday in each state to register their votes. "Americans can be proud of this," says Farber. But the presidential speech hit the mark with part of the population. A third of Americans believe that Joe Biden owes his victory to fraud, a figure that rises to 77% among Donald Trump's voters, according to a poll by the Monmouth University. This kind of poison can infiltrate democracy and undermine the legitimacy of conventional policies, the historian fears. "We'll see how things turn out, but there is clearly a danger for the republic." Fear. Donald Trump's accusations flourished in a favorable context, notes Wendy Schiller, professor of political science at Brown University. "Because of the pandemic, people are no longer having discussions in places of worship, work, or party. At the same time, they consume even more media, but choose those who support their views, such as the small Newsmax and OAN channels for the pro-Trump. There is no more room for contradiction," she said. "You can really choose your reality today by choosing the channels or sites you visit. It is not very good for democracy, because it solidifies opinions," also assures Thomas Holbrook, professor of public policy at the University of Wisconsin. By walling off in silence or by embracing the president's theses, Republican congressmen have further reinforced the doubts of conservative voters. "There is no one they trust who says the opposite of Donald Trump," regrets Michael Nelson, a political scientist at Rhodes College, for whom these elected officials are paralyzed by the fear of angering their base. "Sore loser." In this context, Joe Biden should meet with strong resistance during the first 6 months of his presidency, predicts Wendy Schiller. For the academic, they will settle down when the population is vaccinated against COVID-19, the economy takes off again, and people see that Trump is off to a good start. "In the United States, we are fortunate to have a strong rule of law. So I'm not too worried about the coming year," said Michael Nelson, who however fears to see democracy erode in the next presidential elections. Donald Trump has lowered the bar of what is acceptable, and the losers could now systematically turn to the courts, also fears Mr. Holbrook. As for those who say they are convinced the election was rigged, it's hard to determine if this reflects a deep conviction or if it's a sore loser reflex to feel better, he says. If the first hypothesis were confirmed, it could raise the tolerance threshold for potentially illegal forms of protest, he warns. Disgruntled people might take marginal actions, like those of the militias. Last weekend, dozens of armed people surrounded the house of the Michigan elected official in charge of the elections. On a video of the scene, published on the internet, one of the demonstrators pledges to keep fighting to return the election to President Donald Trump. "This is just the start," she promises.